Here's a big question for you end-timers out there. Are we in a silent spiritual war? Is this World War III leading up to the Great Tribulation? Are we in the birth pangs? There's a lot of people that have those questions out there. Personally, I had that question too. And the answer to that is, yeah, we are. This is the big silent spiritual war that is leading up to alien disclosure, as I mentioned in my previous video. The unmasking or unveiling of the Antichrist and the public admission of spiritual technology and silent but deadly weapons. It's a very shameful thing. That disclosure is very, very shameful. That the military, the government, DARPA, the Pentagon, especially here in America, that is a very dirty secret about silent, spiritual, electromagnetic weapons. And it used to be, you'd be put on pages like Godlike Productions, The Vigilant Citizen, David Icke, of all places, Alex Jones. These used to be the places that only had that type of information on it. Sometimes the Drudge Report, the Drudge Report's a little more mainstream, a little more watered down, like a little more pleasing, and the sight of the Antichrist and Satan and the false prophet, and those of the congregation of the Church of Satan, to kind of like smooth it over, which is what the mainstream media does. Like sometimes, just recently, say from the past year and a half, seems like the media and the president and some other of the world leaders, some of the panel of the UN are actually starting to come clean about the technology that has been used on the population illicitly, and it's nothing more than World War III, human experimentation, a silent Holocaust. So many words you could use: genocide, a death march, yeah, the birth pangs. It's leading up to the Great Tribulation. 7 years ago, I might have said, I probably wouldn't have said this out loud because I wouldn't want to be called names, or I want to let you have more people understand before I speak out. And now I speak freely about it because, well, it's in the news, it's in the media, and the false prophet in the Vatican's talking. Pope Francis, Pope Benedict, I say they're the same darn person, and if not, one of them's being controlled by the false prophet. I'd say Pope Francis is probably being controlled by Satan to some extent. Just the heretical things a man says. And I'm all for equal marriage, because it's got to happen. It's biblical. But yeah, it's a spiritual war, obviously. I think this is the final war leading up to the tribulation. And then, of course, Jesus comes. There's a harpazo, a rapture, if you will. A lot of people don't like that term simply because probably they ain't going to get raptured. And they've probably done some pretty fucked up stuff. So, it's like for every purpose, for everything there is a purpose under heaven. That's really true. God does everything for a reason. Some things God doesn't do, and people try to pass that off as, that's God's fault. Not exactly, not when you see how the forces of darkness work. So, we all have our crosses to bear. We all have our crosses to bear. Some people have families. Some people have their personal truth. Some people just have money and prison. Some people just have a prison cell. And some people have nothing better to do. So everybody's different. I really don't think anything is really a microcosm of the bigger picture. We're all connected in some way. Of course, there's the wheat and the chaff. Personally, I'm with the wheat. You know, I will cloister myself in a convent if I have to not be with, the satanic chaff. I kind of used to have an issue with that. I'm like, is it really necessary? What is my calling? What is my path? And God cleared that up for me. I've had almost a decade to thoroughly study. I could have a doctorate by now. I could be an MD on the subject by now. I've studied so much. And there's nothing in this world. There is no material possession. There is no sensory perception. There's nothing that I want besides Jesus. There's nothing. There isn't anything a mortal can bring me. There's nothing. And this is a very merciful way I've learned in the final generation, and in the final in this final battle we're in the final days, because we're in the final days. It's getting worse and worse. My viewers, it's getting worse and worse. So, when you're with Jesus, you're not suffering alone. It's a war. It's a battle. You realize we're in a war. That's why we need education. We need exercise. We need to study. We need to really pick a side. Really pick a side. It's not good to play Matahari and go back and forth it's just so common. It used to be kind of, people, it used to be a bit of a taboo thing for the large part. Now everybody's a little bit Matahari. Everybody's a little two-faced spy, it seems. There's that part of them. With this invasion from beyond, from the pit of hell to the hearts and minds of men, this last generation army that's fighting against Christ, I must say there's no honor left in the worldwide globalist military. There's no honor, no integrity. The only thing that there really is gumption. For those of you who don't understand what gumption is, that is just sheer insolence, sheer arrogance. That's the only thing left with our warriors, in quotations. Cowardly men with cowardly medals, cowardly promotions. The reason a lot of them are in the jobs they're in is because they have no hope other than the military. That's Satan's military. That's why they want to kind of ixnay all the Bible quotations that they used to just love to be hypocrites about. That's one thing that got him in trouble with God. Taking false oaths, swearing by false oaths, pandering to false gods and idols. There's a difference between a god and an idol, little g. A god, a little g, is nothing more than a demon, nothing more than a fallen angel. And usually the only people that go along with that are the ones that are members of Satan's family. It's kind of like the blood calling out to the blood. The old descendants of Cain, old Canaanites. So there is no honor. There is no honor with Satan or his kin. None. I think really the only difference is we're not in a jungle getting shot at. Spraying Agent Orange on the vegetation. I think that's about the difference. That's pretty much it. It's part of why the Phoenix Project was such a big hit back in Vietnam. Because when you're damned, you really don't rest when you die. So you just keep coming back. So it's like the Smith and Matrix movie. So that's a very common popular culture reference to the way that the damned function. It's really more persistence than graceful perseverance. I do understand how the separation of the functioning of the mind and brain, the central nervous system, when you kind of separate that into an auto-intelligence with some of the electromagnetic sci-tech, you basically let the machine think for you, the quantum processor versus your natural biological function of the mind. I do understand how if you constantly let that think for you, you can facsimilate pseudo normal patterns of behavior. But let me tell you, with the military tech, a lot of the sci-tech, you do enough, you sin enough, and it's really going to mess up a lot of things about your physiological health, not to mention your spiritual health. And somewhere in the middle, the function of the body and the soul, lies the mind. The mind's a little bit of both. Contrary to popular belief, the mind really isn't an intangible function. It's tangible because we can actually access that. We can monitor it. Things like stress, post-traumatic stress disorder, sensory input. It can all be monitored, and with the alphabet agencies, the collection agencies, CIA, the FBI, MI6, a lot of those agencies, I mean, they can already do that. It's common. It's just now starting to be talked about more openly. Of course, those people that are Christian, the Holy Spirit reveals things to us, and we all can figure those types of things out without having to conspire or kind of metaphorically rape someone, metaphorically, metaphysically. So, how good of a liar is Satan? I mean, how good of a liar? So, Can I rewind and go back to the beginning of my conversation? We are in the end of days. We are in a form of tribulation ourselves. I suppose this is the birth pangs. Why God allows such great evil to take place? In His infinite wisdom, He has, I'm sure it's out of love, number one. Number two, I'm sure we'll be commensurated for it. If we're not now, I mean, this is a war. So we're nearing the apex, the denouement, or the climax of it, I should say. Big, the big bang, big boom. So stay patient and always walk in the Spirit. Always walk in the Spirit. So take care. Bye, guys.